Homelessness. Most of us imagine a person sleeping on a park bench, on the sidewalk, scraggly hair, used, dirty clothes, digging in the garbage for something to eat, sitting on a street corner asking for spare change, someone lazy, looking for a handout and a problem to our society. Most of these people don't know what it's like to have a home, a car, a job, a family. So we generously give them a fair amount of money, and they have the choice to use that money as they see fit. But the choice to be homeless, that's not theirs. Because homelessness is not a choice, it is a reality. It is a reality when you don't have food to eat. It is a reality when you don't have a place to sleep. And it is a reality that when you need help, you have no place to go. And the reality is most people know nothing about homelessness. And some of the images you're about to see might be disturbing. I'm Brandon Watson, and welcome to No Place Like Home. What is your opinion on the current state of homelessness in Canada?
It's not a social group. You know, as much as we talk about the homeless, it's not really like that. They are people experiencing a social status that they move in and out of. And in fact, we've seen this move in our particular work, in my field, in the ways in which we talk about homelessness, away from the homeless and onto people experiencing homelessness.
They pick on people, they pick on the weakest people around here. I've been in more fights around here from people doing that. I don't put up with it. You know, there was one night in the late fall, down this alley here. It was dark out. And I heard this chick screaming. So right now I'm off my bench and I'm going down there. And yeah, these two guys had her in the back alley and had her up in the corner. Who knows what would have happened. But I grabbed the guys, started wrestling around with them. She got away. But having a jiu-jitsu experience, I managed to get them both choked out. Took me a bit. Had one black eye, felt like.
You gotta watch out for the weirdos. Like, literally everybody is a friggin' weirdo, and even the people who you wouldn't think are, they are. You don't want to sleep alone by yourself on the streets if you're a girl, really. I don't know, to me it's not comfortable.
I look at homelessness as just another community that we serve as police officers here in Calgary. It is part of our reality. We live in a very big city, and part of our role is to interact and serve and help that community to the best of our ability.
Like for our so-called street justice, the ones that are causing problems are making us all look bad, right? So we're coming up with conclusions on how to run them out of here. You know, how to get them away.
So there's a few things, and I was guilty of this as well. First of all, they're lazy. They don't want to work. They're looking for a handout. I used to say, you know, why do I have to work 2 jobs to keep a roof over my head? Why do they have granite countertops? I used to say that, frankly, and I don't. And you know, I had to go to school. If I wanted a nice car, a nice house, I had to earn it. So why should I help somebody else out? And so there's that misconception that, back to your question, of that they're lazy and just want a handout. most of the time it's almost always a mental health issue, and then of course with that comes addictions, drugs, alcohol, and you know, you don't have to hide it. That's the facts.
Wow. Yeah, that's the mind, spine, heart connection. Weak politicians, bureaucracies, people who are leveraging their status and their privilege. Unfortunately, it's just a lack of a commitment to actually solving and dealing with the problem. That's the issue right now, is that we need people to step up on homelessness issues and food access issues that really want to solve the problem, want to do it innovatively, and they want to do it creatively.
What was it like living on the streets for 27 years?
I mean, you have a routine, and obviously, but I mean, you get by whatever way you can. Everybody's got their own niche out there, right?
And so somebody who's in Canada living on the streets gets very, very cold, both hands and both feet, is that right? Yeah.
I ended up with double pneumonia, and from there things escalated where you don't sleep much. You gotta find a place to sleep here or there. So one night it got minus 38 out. I ended up falling asleep. Had a big meal, went and sat down, and I was out like a light.
I'm Joni, and I've been homeless in Calgary for 2 years. I don't know, I find like people don't really think girls could be homeless, really, I guess, you know? Like, they see me and I'm like any other guy out here going through garbages for cans and whatever, cool stuff and stuff like that, and they look at me and they think I'm like, they're just astonished, I guess. I don't know. I don't like to go to shelters, but usually I get into apartment buildings where it's warm, or I usually just stay on the streets with lots of blankets.
One of the tenets of my research is that living in shelter is a stressful experience. You know, you endure a day-to-day life that can be incredibly stressful. There's research that shows that those first 3 months in shelter have incredible impact on people's mental health.
Really carrying around all my stuff, trying to panhandle and make money for whatever I need, really. And I don't know, finding somewhere where I don't get kicked out within like 5 minutes, basically.
And domestic abuse is another big issue that has to be discussed. And I did read as well that women often get into perhaps unfavorable relationships in order to escape being on the street. And domestic abuse occurs there, they end up back.
Well, it started off with a guy, and then I got into some trouble in Hamilton, and basically legal stuff, a guy, and I ended up here. I was homeless in Hamilton, then I was basically harassed by the cops 24/7 because I got into some trouble, and then I just didn't want it anymore, so I moved out here.
I think sometimes what happens is that they leave one relationship to go to another. It's quite common to see those kinds of relationships happen over and over and over again. And in some cases, I've been told that that's what they know. They don't know anything different.
I think it's really important that we try our best to look after everybody. I mean, I'm a veteran. I saw some problems with some of the people I served with who got into some serious issues, and I noticed when I worked at the drop-in center that you know, there's a lot of veterans who end up homeless.
I've worked with another individual who, on Remembrance Day, when everybody's in the park, he's a veteran, and he stands at attention on the corner of the street, and people pull their kids away from him. But nobody, because he doesn't look like the other veterans that are in the park. But he is an amazing human being who has a story. And I've had the privilege and the honor to know him, like, on a way that other people don't get to know him.
Oftentimes, mental illness is not the reason people fall into homelessness. It's just a symptom of their anxiety while they're in that state. 40% report a substance abuse. 33% of the people we serve are exposed to or fleeing family violence. Almost 30% have been in foster care at some point in their life. So there are definite reasons that people find themselves homeless.
I would suggest that living on the streets, being in a homeless shelter, can actually create PTSD.
Granted, you got some of the shelters here that, you know, they offer services, but they're run more like a jail. So, and realistically, when you're homeless, you don't want to go into a place that you have hand your fingerprints over or do this or do that just to have something to eat and a place to sleep, right?
Now, in sociology, when we talk about stress or a stressor is anything that requires adjustment. And we endure these all the time. You know, we're driving down the street and you spill your coffee, you actually have just experienced a stressor. Does it impact your mental health? Hopefully not. Hopefully we can deal with these day-to-day stressors. The problem is when these stressors accumulate and when your adjustment becomes so high that you can't adequately function, that you can't cope anymore. So stress outweighs coping. And when that happens, we have deleterious effects to our mental health.
Homelessness can start with an individual losing their job. And so is that a single factor? But homelessness can also be started through an addiction issue. Or a mental health situation could come to a place where then it leads to homelessness. And so homelessness is not just about solely mental health generally. It is a mixture, a compilation of other factors. But is mental health key? Absolutely. Because when you have those losses, be it employment or a family member or your own health, so maybe you've had an accident and your ability to do what you used to do has changed, your mental health is radically impacted.
So Indigenous peoples, we've just had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and it was supposed to bring awareness to Indian residential schools. And Indian residential schools are intergenerational traumas that have been, you know, on top of each other, on top of each other, on top of each other, unresolved. No mental health support, no help with addiction support, no help with an understanding of the problems that were caused by Indian residential schools. So until we start addressing those issues, we're going to see that overrepresentation.
I was in Foothills for 8 months, and then I got involved with accessible housing, which helped me out get a place to live, which is Chinook for a while, and then I ended up in this place. It was, you know, it's affordable. It's half of what I was paying, if not less. Makes it a little easier, you know, you get a little extra cash to spend. But for this city, I don't see that there should be any homelessness. I don't see a reason for it. You know, the government's handing out money to the associations for everything, and you still have a big homelessness problem, and I can't see a reason for it. You know, I really don't.
So I'm here with Deborah. We're in Medicine Hat now, and you'd like to make a statement, is that right?
Yeah, I just want to say something about homelessness. I think the core to starting to solve homelessness is housing first. If there's stability in housing and stability in food, and so the person can just settle down and then start to find what services are going to help pull that person out of it. But you can't start trying to turn things around by having shelters that reject certain people, or shelters aren't an answer. You have to give stable housing, stable homes, and stable food to people who need it, and then figure stuff out along the way.
I think you're absolutely right. Medicine Hat has shown that to be true with their system.
That's certainly our intention and what we're trying to do.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate
housing
it.
first. Okay.
Who came up with this solution originally?
It's the Housing First, which was the province of Alberta implemented the Housing First model, and I'm going to say now about 7 or 8 years ago already. It was a 10-year plan to end homelessness from the province, but our local community housing association thought that 10 years was frankly too long. Every day that went by with people still sleeping rough, sleeping on the street was one day too long, so let's try to do it in 5 years. What sold me at first on the Housing First model was that it actually saves the taxpayer money. In Medicine Hat, it costs maybe $20,000 a year to house someone per year, but it can be upwards of $80,000 to $120,000 a year to keep somebody on the street. When you factor in first responders, emergency room visits, hospital stays, interactions with the police, of course.
I first learned about the Housing First program back in 2007 when I went to Toronto, Streets to Home program. I came back a skeptic and was thinking that there is no way it will work in my community because we didn't have adequate funding or resources. And a big city like Toronto could absolutely end homelessness, but a small city, Grand Prairie at the time, or Medicine Hat, would not be able to do that. And I am definitely not a skeptic anymore. We see some great strides here in Medicine Hat. I'm really proud of the work that this community does.
And what happens, I think, in the problem with the larger centers, say Montreal or Toronto or Vancouver, is that there's not a centralized intake. There's one centralized intake here in Medicine Hat. You get your house, or you get your place to live, and then you get the wraparound services. You get, mental health. Why are you homeless? Are you fleeing domestic violence? Is it drug? Is it alcohol? What is it? And so you get the help you need. And so here in Medicine Hat, we try to get that central intake and then get the wraparound services. What I think is going wrong in the bigger cities is people mean well. Churches want to help you. Your neighbor wants to help you out. But if everybody is trying to help and there's basically no quarterback, you don't have control over the situation, and then you can't keep track of the people, get them housed and get them the help they need. And that's where Medicine Hat's success has been, is the central intake. It used to be, before Housing First, you know what, you want a place to live? Get off the drugs and alcohol, get yourself straightened out, and then we'll talk to you about it. No, Housing First is exactly the opposite. Let's give you a place to live. So you have an address, and now you can get the help you need.
I think that's absolutely correct. I mean, how can you, like you said, how can you get help for a mental health issue, for alcoholism, for drug abuse, if you're sleeping on the street?
You don't even have an address. Sometimes you can't access services. What's your address? The first thing they ask you is your name and your address. I'm park bench number 2.
Something critical that happened here in Medicine Hat and across Alberta is we actually had a government that initiated a provincial plan to end homelessness, but they did something different. They actually attached funding to it so that we could do community-based service delivery based on our local plans to end homelessness. So why don't other communities do it? They don't have plans to guide them or the necessary support from their provincial, federal, or local governments to actually implement.
So at first, I didn't believe that we could solve this problem, even here in Medicine Hat. So I had to be convinced. But now that we have done it, the model works. It can be applied anywhere. You just have to have that centralized intake, and so it doesn't matter how big your city is or how big your problem is. And then our problem wasn't small here. We've housed over 1,000 people. I mean, to put that in, Calgary's 20 times the size, that'd be equivalent of Calgary housing 20,000 people. And in Vancouver's just a scale bigger. And it will work. It just has to be scalable, and it can be done. But what also we have done, nobody believed you can get to the moon until somebody gets to the moon. Nobody believed you can fly until somebody flew. Nobody believed you could end homelessness until somebody or a municipality did it. And so we are providing, and this is cliche and it sounds corny, but hope. And a lot of our, actually we talk about hope, is homelessness, ending homelessness is hope and providing hope. And now we've shown, and we can provide hope to, well, the world, frankly, but to the rest of the country as well, that it can be done.
And that's something that we really want to help spread the message of, to try to inspire everybody to start thinking about and working on a plan like this, to implement it across Canada. And do you think something like that is feasible?
Absolutely. Yes, I always say yes. To have a plan and actually have strategies and goals that are attainable and doable, and that can actually be measured and show the progress in people's lives is really important. And if Medicine Hat can do it, the little sleepy town that people always said homelessness doesn't exist here, you know, to date we've housed 1,084 individuals. So, you know, our counter to that is, for a community where homelessness never existed, we've sure housed a lot of people.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some work to be done. And what we want to do with No Place Like Home is really help spread that message that this can be done, we can work towards it. And I really appreciate you sitting down with me and talking with me about this issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow. As you've seen, homelessness is not a choice, but a reality. It's a problem that can be as complex as mental illness, PTSD, alcohol, or drug abuse, or as simple as the loss of a job or a failed marriage. And it's an issue that transcends our borders around the world. Can homelessness be eliminated? Well, that's a question for all of us. I'm Brandon Watson. Tune in to the next episode of No Place Like Home.